Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending today's pre-fog committee. My name is Anna Pennington from the City of Everett. I am chair of the American Public Works Association, APWA, Washington Chapter Pre-fog Committee. We have here today Brian Solomon, Tyler Ellis, Vijay Kubsad, and later we'll have some guests from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And we will be going over a couple things today. So the last time this committee met, we centered on the pre-fog committee mission statement shown here to develop a regional approach on technical, utility management, and regulatory issues that affect planning, building, and maintaining of the wastewater utilities with emphasis for the reduction, elimination, and prevention of fats, oils, and grease in our wastewater system. That's kind of a lot. So in short, the purpose of the committee is to share information ideas across Washington for the reduction of fog, fats, oils, and grease. So we did this last year by a presentation from Jill Huanga, who gave a great presentation on food truck waste management. And today, Vijay Kubsad from the Department of Ecology is presenting on Pretreatment 101. I'm looking forward to this. Vijay has a lot of experience on pretreatment and engineering, wastewater, and just in general. So he graciously volunteered to give a presentation today. So you can see here on the left, there's the 4 co-chairs, as well as my information there. So we'll be hearing from them shortly. So a short committee update. You can see here we have the goals and activities listed. With the relaunch of our committee since last year, we've been working on some of these goals and activities to keep it centered around the mission statement we just read. These goals guide what we do, and the activities guide how we do it. So you can see there's a couple of just kind of general goals, and then activities below. The first one is today is a committee meeting. We haven't quite got to biannual yet. We have just one this year. Hopefully maybe next year we'll have 2. But that's the goal, is to have 2 activities, 2 committee meetings to help us provide pretreatment and fog information and training. One of the main accomplishments since last year, a lot of you know that the pre-fog committee webpage was down for a year. We weren't able to access a lot of information that was on the old webpage, but now it's up. You probably accessed the page to register for today's committee meeting, so please take some time to check that out. We're hoping to add more information to that webpage, and eventually the recording for this meeting will be posted there. So if you aren't able to attend the entire meeting today, you can go there later this week and access the recording. We'll forward it on to somebody else who may have missed out. So some more activities listed here. We have one of our co-chairs is going to submit an article to the APWA chapter magazine. Hopefully going to get that in one of the upcoming issues, so look forward for that. I don't think pre-fog has ever had a magazine article in the magazine, so that would be a first. It'd be pretty exciting. We also are looking into having a pre-fog Person of the Year award. A lot of other APWA committees have something similar, so we're hoping that we can model those awards and have one for our own committee. We are developing some social media topics for our committee spotlight. These are posted on APWA social media channels like Facebook, Twitter X, LinkedIn. And so you'll be seeing those coming in the next few months. We also want to encourage people to attend APWA conferences. One's in the spring, another in the fall. I've never attended a conference, but I'm hoping that with this committee being relaunched since last year and moving forward, we might have some representatives there to attend and possibly present a technical session in the future. I think that'd be pretty cool. Those conferences are usually kind of the topics range in public works departments and not necessarily wastewater, and definitely not pretreatment or fog. So it'd be good to get some exposure at those conferences. And lastly, one of our activities is to cross-pollinate with other APWA committees. And like I mentioned, we'll have the DEI committee within the APWA Washington chapter presenting at the end of our meeting today, and they'll be, giving information about their committee and how to become a member and what you can do to help contribute towards our goals and activities as well. So next is our regional update. Here's our 4 co-chairs. Jim Heisman from the Lumbee Tribal Sewer and Water District is not able to be here today. So I will have to have him give his update the next meeting. But if Tyler and then Brian and then if Joshua is here today, if you guys wouldn't mind giving your updates the next 6 seconds each, and we'll go on from there.
All right, thanks, Anna. So, my name's Tyler Ellis. I work for Clark Regional Wastewater District in Vancouver. I'm the pretreatment specialist here. So my update is more for my specific treatment plant, more so than the region. Just give you a little update of what we've got going on out there. We're going through a lot of expansion and construction to upgrade our capacity in our secondary treatment. So we just put online a brand new secondary clarifier earlier this year, and they're currently constructing a new aeration basin, and they're wrapping up construction on a new 48-inch effluent pipeline out to the Columbia River. That's been a multi-year project, laying that pipeline several miles out to the river. So we're excited about all these improvements at the plant, and we're hopeful for the future. So that's my update.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're good.
Oh, okay. My name is Brian Solomon. I'm the Central Region co-chair. I work for the city of Richland. I think for the most part, as far as fog's concerned, my update would be we started looking more into where a lot of the grease haulers are taking the grease that they're taking from our FSEs. And it seems like everything pretty much goes to the west side of Washington, Seattle area. And I guess another update would be we actually just finished an aeration basin here at the city of Richland that had been offline for 7 years, 8 years, something like that. We're also in the midst of doing some digester and boiler upgrades at our plant. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Brian. Joshua, if you're able to give your update, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. My name is Joshua Villa. I'm the pretreatment coordinator here for Spokane County's publicly owned treatment works. And for fog, what we've done recently, we haven't had much of a fog presence in our Spokane jurisdiction, so that's a new thing. And we are beginning inspections starting this we started inspections just recently. But, the education campaign is really going on in our area because the messages for maintenance and record keeping and coordination with pumpers has been something that has needed to be addressed. So I've been addressing that over the last year. I've got a lot of coordination. And as far as, so that's going great. So education is really right now going to be in full force for all of our users. And additionally, I think while we don't, and I'm going to mirror what was just said earlier, most of our fog either goes to the city of Spokane's water treatment facility there, or wastewater treatment facility as just wastewater, but we don't have any specific fog receiving. Everything does get trucked out of our region. Generally it does. So that's something that we're looking toward, maybe having a public-private partnership moving forward very early in that conversation, but there's the potential for that. And I think that's pretty much, other than that, we haven't had any significant plan updates or anything, so there's nothing to report on that, but mostly hopes and dreams. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Joshua. So you probably noticed there's a common theme of fog disposal locations. The 4 committee chairs and I have been talking about this a little bit since I think August was our last meeting within the committee. And so we put together a list of grease disposal locations in our different regions. As you know, obviously in the eastern region there are none, and it sounds like the central as well. So we did put together a list of places that we do know about. So I'm going to launch a poll here, and if you see any locations that grease haulers use in your region, go ahead and check those boxes. There isn't a good way to add locations to the poll. So if you could just add those to the chat, if you don't see it listed in the poll, then that would be great. And this would be something that the information from this could be put onto our webpage. And so people could access that to see what locations are in their area. Honestly, I didn't really know what grease locations or grease disposal locations were available in my area until I asked. And it turns out there's quite a few. It is interesting that some grease haulers were trucking their grease waste by rail out of state to Iowa, which is kind of crazy to me. I'm not really sure how that's cost effective, but it must be. But go ahead and participate in that poll, and then we'll review the results in a minute. I'll give you guys a minute or two to participate. So I'll give about 30 more seconds to participate in the poll. And then I've seen some answers coming into the treatment or into the chat about disposal locations. So that's great. Okay, so I see the results here. Looks like the top answer is Baker Commodities in Renton. I know a lot of our participants today are from the western side of Washington State. We have some people out of state as well. So it doesn't surprise me too much that's Baker Commodities. And let's see, Qualco and Monroe and a couple of, Mahoney Environmental there in Portland are some top answers. I'm also not really surprised because I was one of these people up until a few months ago that 20% of the answers in this poll today are, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. So I encourage you to ask your grease haulers where they're taking their grease waste for disposal, and keep track of that. Hopefully they're not pumping it back into your sewer system. That would be not good. So thank you for participating in that. And please continue to add disposal locations, if they're not listed here in this poll, to the chat during our presentation today. We're going to move on to our special presentation by Vijay Kubsad. Vijay is a senior environmental engineer at the Washington State Department of Ecology's Water Quality Program. I'm going to give a short bio here. For the past 9 years, he's managed industrial pretreatment programs and promoted regulatory compliance in the eastern region of Washington State. His experience in wastewater engineering, consulting, training, and research makes him a valuable statewide resource, which is one of the reasons why I asked him to present today. I met him the first time, I think last year at the Pacific Northwest Pretreatment Workshop, and he had a lot of information to share, and so I asked him to come today for a presentation. Vijay completed a doctorate in environmental engineering at Indian Institute of Technology in Bombay, India, and expanded his studies with a research fellowship at University of Wollongong, Australia, on permeable reactive barriers. Before coming to ecology, Vijay developed strategies for mining operations in Canada. His professional experience extends to academic appointments in engineering universities and authorship of numerous research papers, books, contributions, and speeches, nationally and internationally. Vijay obviously likes travel and also enjoys sightseeing and exploring trails. Thank you, Vijay. We look forward to your presentation. So while he and I get this set up, I'm going to launch another poll to help you guys decide what the next special presentation for our hopefully 2 times a year we'll have a presentation. And so we wanted to hear from you guys what topics that we should cover. So let me launch this poll. And then Vijay, you and I will get set up, all right?
Yeah, sounds great.
So Vijay, if you want to share your screen when you're ready. Great, looks good. So we'll hear from Vijay for the next couple minutes, and then after his presentation, we will have a short Q&A section, ask a regulator question, and we'll take it over from there. But until then, Vijay, you have the microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And I think you guys have enjoyed the summer and enjoying the fall now. And thank you for brief introduction, Anna. So today's topic is the introduction to pretreatment program. Pretreatment is designed to protect publicly owned treatment works, that's POTW. It's basically designed to treat domestic wastewater, that is the residential wastewater. And also the industry, the tributary industries can discharge to the POTW. The basic idea of pretreatment program is to help the industry, small industries, as well as medium and bigger one also, if they don't want to manage their wastewater. So that is the basic idea, and that is discharged to the POTW, and then it is taken care of. So how we differentiate pretreatment from the industrial pretreatment to a domestic treatment? So if you see the wastewater, the F/M ratio for the domestic wastewater is about 5.5, and for industrial wastewater it is much higher, starts from 0.5 to 0.6, 6.5, so 0.65. So when it is discharged, it mixes with the domestic wastewater, then it is taken care of. Pretreatment is basically when the industry is discharged to the POTW, they have to give a pre-treat. That is why it is, the name implies pre-treatment of wastewater. So they have to pre-treat and then discharge it to the POTW. They have to remove the inhibitors in the treatment, and they should make it compatible to the capabilities and the treatment capabilities of the designed POTW. Let us see what is this pretreatment program. Pretreatment is designed to control the pollutants for non-domestic sources, discharging wastewater to the sewer system that are connected publicly owned treatment. It's a national program implemented through regions, states, and local programs. And the purpose of the pretreatment program is to prevent the introduction of pollutants into the POTW. That is interference, pass-through, and incompatibility. Incompatibility is an important factor when the tributary industries discharge to POTW. They have to remove the inhibitors which will cause an interference and pass through to the POTW, then discharge. The next one is to improve the opportunities to recycle, reclaim wastewater and sludges to protect POTW workers. The basic understanding of pretreatment program is to protect the public infrastructure, that is the POTW. So common occurrence, you already know that is the Clean Water Act and NPDES permits, POTW, industrial users, and significant industrial users who discharge more than 25,000 gallons per day, and CIU, the categorical industrial users. And you know the CFR, that is the Federal Regulation Code. So these, what are the other common phrases we use? Approved pretreatment program, control authority, that is the city or town which is delegated, that is known as a control authority. And approval authority is of course the ecology or EPA. Then interference, pass through, improve the opportunity for the sludge. The definition of pretreatment terms are well mentioned in 40 CFR 403. If you see this picture, you see what are the various components of pretreatment program. One is the industry which discharges to the POTW through a sewer line system of the city's sewer line system. So that has to be protected, and it may cause, if the industrial discharge is without treatment, if it is left in the sewer lines, it may cause explosions. And the workers will be exposed to the toxic substances and hazardous fumes. And expensive, limited or more expensive sludge disposal options. Sludge can be reused, applied to the land, and pass to the toxic pollutants. If you see, this is the industries which discharge to the sewer system, then to the treatment plant, then it is the outfall, depending upon where it is discharged, creek or river. Who is affected? Who are the stakeholders of this pretreatment program? One is the approval authority, which issues the permit and monitor the POTWs and the industries. And POTW, industrial users, waste haulers. Some of the small treatment units, they can collect the wastewater and then discharge to the nearest POTW, and commercial entities. And approval authority, who is the approval authority? What is the goal of the approval authority? Is adequate implementation of pretreatment program requirements, legal authority, and oversight of site responsibilities, POTW, pretreatment program implementation, SIU, significant industrial users, and categorical industrial user pretreatment program implementation. And what is the goal of the POTW? Goal of the POTW is to prevent interference and pass through at the plant. This is the very important factor for an POTW. The purpose of the POTW is to protect the public infrastructure. Then the legal authority, of course, the state or the local government, local city, and responsibilities, survey, industrial user survey, permits, and waste haulers, commercial entities, and how we manage doing inspection, issuing a permit and monitoring, receive and review reports, enforcement if the plant is not run as per the regulation and the annual report. Industrial users, what is the main goal of the industrial users? Comply with the local, state, and federal pretreatment standards and requirements. Local standards plays an important role because local standards are designed, limits are put based on the capability of the treatment unit. That is why the local limits may be more stringent than the state, and the state limits must be stringent, more stringent than the federal. CIU's self-implementation standard, effluent limits, and reporting requirements. It has a little different reporting requirements. Responsibilities, compliance with the control mechanism requirement, self-monitoring, reporting. And waste haulers and commercial entities, what are their goals and responsibilities? Their goal is comply with the local, state, and federal pretreatment standards and requirements. Responsibilities, no hazardous waste. No hazardous waste is discharged to the POTW headwork. And no constrained discharge, comply with the POTW requirement. That's the basic purpose of haulers. Let us see the program review. The program is designed based on the Clean Water Act 1977. NPDES permits are designed. EPA is the main central body, and NPDES is the state one, and NPDES permits, then the pretreatment program and the industrial users. If you see, I have given the list of statutory basis for NPDES programs. Point sources must obtain an NPDES permit from EPA or other delegated cities. NPDES permits require development of pretreatment program. I have given the pretreatment regulations. One which is more important for us is the pretreatment streamlining regulations. And 40 CFR 403 is a US Code of Federal Regulation, which is more important, which is governed for the pretreatment program. The Chapter 1 Environmental Protection Agency, Sub-Chapter N Effluent Guideline Standards. These are the Part 403 General Pretreatment Regulations for existing and new sources. These are the sources for pretreatment program. I've also given the websites here for more information. Program implementation, who must develop the program? POTW has to develop the program. The city will develop the program. What is the design capacity usually look at? We look at 5 million gallons per day. We have also delegated some of the programs which are less than that, depending upon the case-by-case basis. Receiving flow subject to pretreatment standard. Receiving pollutants which pass through or interfere. Approval authority may require a program to be developed regardless. NPDES states may assume the responsibility. Oversight authority, control authority is the city, which has the POTW, and the approval authority, that is the Department of Ecology in Washington and the EPA also. CA and an entity that regulates industrial users can mean the EPA or state or the POTW. If it is a delegated, then the POTW. Delegation in the sense state Department of Ecology authorize the city to run the program on behalf of ecology. AA is the entity that oversees the CS, can mean the EPA or the state. Depending on the pretreatment authorization status, it may have a delegated status or non-delegated status. I deal with the delegated cities also and non-delegated status also. If you see this, this picture will gives the NPDES program authorizations or in the whole US. You can get it. This is the 2019 map. You can get the latest also. Implementation and oversight. Who will oversight the pretreatment program? EPA or the state? In case of Washington, EPA state is authorized by EPA to run the pretreatment program. We have an agreement with the EPA how to run the pretreatment program in the Washington state and what are the requirements. POTWs receive and review annual reports, pretreatment compliance inspection, pretreatment compliance audit, and enforcement. So when a POTW is delegated, it is audited every 2 years. Either it is a pretreatment compliance inspection or it may be pretreatment compliance audit. In case of pretreatment compliance inspection, we just audit the city POTW. In case of audits, we audit the city in addition to 2 facilities having a permit issued by the POTW and the enforcement. They have to run the pretreatment program as per the guidelines. Direct oversight of industrial users, control mechanisms, monitor and inspect, receive and review report, and enforcement. There are some non-delegated programs also where the ecology issue direct permit and manage their permit. I do both. I also audit the different POTW in the eastern region, and also I have an non-delegated industrial users where I issue the permit and manage their facility. Pretreatment standard, the general categorical standards, local pretreatment standard. I said local pretreatment standards are very important in the pretreatment program because the treatment plant capability and capacity is the basic requirement, or the local limits are developed based on the treatment capability and capacity of the POTW. So that is why the local limits are important for any POTW. And it needs to be updated every 5 years in order to keep the system intact. Can be expressed as a numeric limits, narrative, prohibitions, and best management practice. Best management practices in the sense there are small facilities like a car wash or some small metal finishing units where you don't want to issue a permit because their discharge is very small and quality is compatible. So in that case, you will issue a best management practice which developed by the city in order to keep the inhibition dischargers out of the system. General prohibitions: a non-domestic discharger may not introduce into a POTW any pollutants which cause pass-through interference these general prohibitions and the specific prohibitions apply to each non-domestic discharger introducing pollutants into a POTW, whether or not the non-domestic discharger is subjected to the national pretreatment standard or any national, state, local pretreatment requirement. What it means is the very responsibility of the POTW is to protect the treatment plant. It can stop any discharge under 403.5, which states that any discharge which causes pass-through or interference with the treatment, they have the authority to stop the discharge. Then specific prohibitions, which are well mentioned in the 403.5, pollutants which create fire explosion hazards, pollutants which cause corrosive structural damages, because if anyone is discharging wastewater which is less than 4, 3, 2, so that will cause a corrosive damage to the sewer line system. Solid or viscous pollutant causing obstruction and resulting in the interference. It is quite possible that it may cause interference in the treatment. Pollutants released at the flow rate concentration causing the interference. That is the slug flow. If any discharger is discharging the wastewater to the ford of 2, 3 at a time, more than what is allowed in the permit, then that will cause a shock loading to the biological system. Biological systems are very sensitive to the flow and the quality of the discharge received by the treatment plants. It is difficult to, once the system is disturbed, it is my understanding, my years of experience in biological treatment, it is not like something we can recover quickly. That is why it requires a continuous monitoring and observation and update as per the discharge. Then heat in amount which inhibits the biological activities. That is why for the POTW permits, we make sure that if it is discharging it to the river or creek, the temperature is one of the limiting factors. And oil in amounts that will cause the interference to pass through. Oil and grease has to be removed before it is discharged to the sewer system or to the POTW intern. Because oil and grease, if you see the treatment train unit, the very second unit is the oil and grease trap. The first one is the grit chamber, after screen grit chamber and the grease trap. Oil and grease has to be removed in the very beginning of the treatment, because oil and grease, in my experience, it reduces more than 30 to 40% of the efficiency of overall treatment plant. So that is why this plays an important role in the treatment of the whole wastewater system. Then pollutant which result in presence of toxic gases, vapors, and fumes, that is also an important factor. And some of the trucked and hard pollutants, that is the wastewater which are discharged at the headworks of the treatment plant through the trucks, has to be their wastewater has to be analyzed, and they should also be in compliance with the POTW standards. You can see the example when the wastewater, once it comes out of the outfall, the reaction starts. All kind of reaction. There will be a liberation of hydrogen sulfide. It will also release methane. So if there is an accumulation of methane at some point, you can see the disaster here. It will explode when comes across the right temperature. And also you can see on the sewer lines, hydrogen sulfide react with water to form an acid, which will create a corrosion and spoil the entire sewer system. That is why in the pre-treatment standard, we try to make sure that the discharge pH should be between 5 to 11. That is in order to protect the sewer lines and in turn the POTW. It also forms an acidic waste forms which will cause internal interference to the treatment plants. Categorical standards. Categorical standards like the metal finishers and chrome plating all come under the categorical units in the users. So National Uniform Technology-Based Standards called Effluent Limitation Guidelines, specific industrial category, specific process covered, specific pollutant limitations, contain direct and indirect discharges that is governed by 40 CFR Part 405 to 4071. So these categorical discharges, one has to be careful. It doesn't matter how much is the volume of the discharge. The quality of the discharge is important. It may cause great interference in the treatment. Pre-treatment categorical standards. Pre-treatment standards for existing and new sources. Example, with the pretreatments, organic chemicals, plastics, synthetic fibers, which are covered under 40 CFR at different parts, and inorganic chemicals, metal finishers, paint formulating, and hospitals, and as a no pre-treatment standard. Any waste which is coming out of the hospitals are not allowed to discharge in the sewer line, because however it may be 5 ml, 10 ml, anything, any clinical stuff which is coming out of the hospital, it has to be incinerated. I receive a phone call several times. We have whether we can dispose of the vials which are 1 ml, 2 ml, 3 ml. No, nothing which comes out of the hospital, it should be discharged to the sewer line, because it will end up in the treatment plant, pass through, and ultimately in the river it enters the food chain through fish. So that is why it is important to make sure that the hospitals in your service area are taking care of the waste which is coming out of the hospital. Local pre-treatment standards required for all approved pre-treatment programs. It can include chemical specific, best management practice, additional specific prohibitions, industrial user management plan, case by case discharge limits. I said local limits plays an important role in protecting the POTWs. Local limit must be technically based, developed for each POTW. That's why local limits for each POTW are different. They are developed based on the capacity and capability of the treatment plants. That is why in designing, we should have a lot of data analysis, trend analysis to make sure that limits are well captured in the local limits. Implement prohibitions. You can always implement prohibitions. You cannot discharge this above this limits, or you cannot discharge. These are the contaminants to the sewer lines. So that is possible under 40 CFR 403.8. Developed for each pollutant concern, and it depends upon the type of the discharger also. In some areas, if you see, there are a lot of food industries where they discharge high BOD wastewater. In certain area, the different type of industry. So that is why it is important to develop the local limit based on the tributary discharges must be protected of the plant worker, and the environment. The main purpose of the pretreatment program is to protect the plant, and also the protecting yourself is also very important. Plant workers protection is important. Always you should make sure that you should have a proper PPE when you visit the site, because it is the wastewater is produced 24 hours, 365 days. You guys are doing an incredible job. So at the same time, it is important to take care of yourself when you are working on the treatment site. And local limit must be enforceable. POTW pretreatment program responsibilities. Local limit, local pretreatment programs, requirement of POTW developed pretreatment program, content of the POTW submission for requesting program approval procedure for POTW pretreatment program, modification if there is any change in the POTW once the permit is issued, then it is called a modification. If there is an upgradation in the treatment plant, or if there is a change in the characteristic of the wastewater which is received by the POTW, then the modification of the POTW pretreatment program has to be done. Pretreatment program components, legal authority, local limit, procedures, list of industrial users, enforcement response plan has to be there. If the things are not going on as per the regulation, then there should be a plan in place to take action, and of course the funding. Legal authority, it may be state law, local regulations, sewer user audience, and rules and regulations. POTW legal authority, deny or condition discharge. You have the right to deny the discharge. Require compliance. The wastewater which is received by the POTW require a compliance. Control through permit or similar means you should have, and that is why the permit is the control document for any discharger. There are certain small industries, small units, small commercial entities. If you feel that permit is not required, you can also issue an administrative order, or you can a zero discharge permit. That gives you an access to that facility. You can go and inspect and see what they are doing, where the wastewater is going, how they are taking care of their wastewater, whether they are the spill plan is in place, whether the sludge plan is in place, how they are storing their chemicals, how they are storing, whether they are collecting the wastewater and then disposing it off-site. So all these things can be done if you have a control document, that is either, even if they are not discharging to the sewer lines, you can issue a zero discharge permit. Require compliance schedules. You need a compliance schedule depending upon the requirements. Inspection, survey, and monitor, enforce, comply with the confidentiality requirement. That is the obvious. The cities usually have their confidentiality requirements. Then EPA model for pretreatment audience. Then local limits.
Vijay, I'm going to jump in here and give you a 5-minute warning.
Okay.
Thank you.
So local limits, I have talked much about that, technically based and developed for each pollutant of concern, and what procedure must be a POTW pretreatment program have. Identify, locate the possibility, identify the character and volume of the pollutants, receive and analyze the reports submitted by industrial users. And these are what procedure must be POTW pretreatment program must have. Conduct random sampling, surveillance, inspection, conduct slug discharge, evaluation, and investigate the instances of non-compliance, comply with the public participation requirement. So industrial wastewater survey, identify, locate industrial user subject to the pretreatment program requirement, and that is well mentioned in the industrial user waste survey procedure. Control mechanism, you can have a permit, or you can have an order, or you can have a similar means of contributing for each industrial user to ensure compliance. Can be achieved through individual or a general permit. Then who to permit? SIUs, CIUs, and optimal permit, non-significant industrial users, and CIUs, waste haulers, groundwater remediation sites. And who issues the permit? This is the cycle: EPA, reasons, NPDES, and approved pretreatment program, that is a controlling authority for the industrial users. And for non-NPDES also, we can issue the permit directly by the EPA or by the state. So compliance monitoring, conduct by the POTW, independent from any industrial user. Self-monitoring can be announced or it may be unannounced. Inspections can be conducted, used to satisfy federal requirement, state requirements. Sampling must be done for each facilities annually. Pretreatment series gives a lot of information on procedure for conducting compliance monitoring. And POTW compliance inspection must be conducted annually for significant industrial users, categorical users, and the industries. And enforcement, obtain remedies for non-compliance, authority to seek or assess civil or criminal penalties if they are not following as per the regulation. You have the right to take the enforcement. There are always the enforcement plan in place, how you should go, how to investigate, what should be, how the penalty can be issued, and how we should make it significantly non-compliance. So funding is the important factor. The personnel, equipment, and funding required for any pretreatment program. And POTW record keeping. So all the records should be kept in confidentiality, and each city and POTW have their own regulations to keep these records. For some of them are 3 years, or if they are in a litigation for a longer time until they are completed. Then all the slug control and slug management, pollution prevention plans must be in place. So POTW public participation is important. Local limit development, I talked about that. Then annual reporting has to be there to the approval authority by the POTW. And industrial user responsibility, industrial user notification requirements, and whether they are in compliance, non-compliance, and repeated sampling reports. Notification of change discharge has to be there. If there is a change in the discharge quantity or the quality, it has to be reported to POTW or to the regulator authority well in advance on both sides. CI report.
We have 1 more minute. Would you like a little bit more time for your presentation?
Yeah, just I may need 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. Sounds good.
Then CI reporting, the CIU reporting requirements, notification of production levels, notification of material, and baseline monitoring report, compliance schedule, progress report are important for categorical industries, which will cause severe damage to the POTW. And always there is a 90 days compliance report, or in case of significant users, it is a 5 days report and the 24 hours reporting. And other SIU responsibilities, periodic compliance report, slug discharge control, as I mentioned, it will cause a severe damage to the receiving POTW if the slug discharge control plan is not in place. All SIU is required to conduct a self-monitoring. Then signatory and certification requirements. Reports must be signed, certified by authorized person of industrial or industrial user representative, baseline monitoring report, 90 days compliance report, categorical periodic compliance report. A lot of reports as per the permit requirement has to be submitted by the industrial users. I talked about the industrial user record keeping requirements. It depends on their policies. Usually it is 3 years. And introduction to National Pretreatment Program Manual. You have in a series of, this 2011 manual, which gives more information about the pretreatment program. Major major changes occurred in June 2011. It is available for your reference. And these are the manual, topics in the manuals you can go through. That's a very important document to read this. So this POTW and the need for the pretreatment program, overview of National Pretreatment Program, pretreatment standards, everything is well mentioned. Industrial user pretreatment program responsibilities, hard waste, and pollution prevention. These are the different topics available in the manual. They are very informative and important one the POTW or delegated authority has to follow through. So this is the last slide. As I mentioned, as I said before, wastewater is produced 24 hours, 365 days. It is important to take care to protect the state waters and environment, need a continuous effort to monitor and upgrade of wastewater treatment plant as needed. This is an endless journey. You all are doing a great job of protecting our water and environment. Be proud what you are doing and what you are contributing, and enjoy, and you should be proud of what you are doing. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Vijay. That was a great presentation. A lot of information. And this presentation will be posted on the webpage, as I said earlier. So if there was something that you missed, feel free to review that. I'm sure Vijay also wouldn't mind if you contacted him and had some clarifying questions. We won't be taking time specifically to answer questions or to ask questions about Vijay's presentation, but we will be taking some time to ask some general questions. And if you have a question that did apply to that presentation, then you could post it in the chat in a second. So let me transfer over here. Wait a second. Second, something's not working. There we go. Okay, so thank you again for Vijay for your presentation. So we're going to have for the next 20 minutes a Ask the Regulator Q&A session, and that includes questions about Vijay's presentation here. So we're going to try to prioritize people who have less than 3 years of experience. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat and I'll read them off to Vijay. And with your question, include the number of years of experience. The last committee meeting we had, I put out a poll that asked people to list how many years of experience they had. And it was across the board for sure, but there was a lot of people with less than 3 years of experience. And so I'm sure everyone here has noticed that over time. People who came in after the Clean Water Act was passed, the pretreatment program started up. They're now retiring or have retired recently, and now we have people coming into the field who may have less experience in pretreatment or had no experience whatsoever and came into pretreatment. So we want to give those people an opportunity to ask questions. That there's no such thing as a stupid question. So feel free to add something to the chat, include the number of years. And I do want to make a disclaimer that the answers that Vijay gives does not it's intended to supplement, but does not modify existing policy guidance and regulation by federal, state, and local entities. Even though Vijay represents the Department of Ecology, you should refer to your local authorities, which may be Vijay if you're on the Eastern region, but look to them specifically for answers to your questions if this is a diagnosis. This Q&A session is intended to be more general than asking how to proceed with a issue you're dealing with. It may just be questions about how do you submit certain reports, or what's the frequency you should have for a certain parameter or something like that. So go ahead and put questions into the chat with the number of years, and I'll read them off to Vijay. So the first question we have is, could you expand more with hospital waste needed to be incinerated? And I have the same question too, so this is great.
Yes, that is true. You should make sure that the waste which is coming out of the hospital should not be discharged to the sewer lines. And you should also make sure that you will follow up what they are doing, whether they are sending it to the incineration or how they are taking the waste which is coming out of the hospital.
Could you expand more? Because I know in my region, we have a hospital that they have a cafeteria where they make their food for the patients. So that waste stream would have to be separated from hospital wastewater.
Exactly. The domestic wastewater is different. If the wastewater is coming through their kitchen or to the cafeteria, that is a domestic wastewater. And especially the wastewater which is or a solid waste or the wastewater which is coming out from the clinical.
Great, thank you. Please continue to post questions in the chat, and I'll read them off to Vijay. I guess maybe on that question, Vijay, is that requirement that hospital waste needs to be incinerated in the pretreatment guidelines?
Yes, they have a separate guidelines for how to take care of the hospital waste. Okay. It's not in the pretreatment, but it will cause an issue with the treatment plan.
Mm-hmm. There's additional part to that question that was added. It says, does this apply to clinics as well or just hospitals?
I think hospitals.
Hospitals, okay. Another question was, is that in 40 CFR 460?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure. I will have to check with that. So there is a regulation for that, how to take care of the clinical waste or waste coming out of the hospitals.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure if it is 460, the applicability requirements would list what kind of waste streams would apply, and that would help someone determine whether it's a clinic or a hospital. Great. While we're waiting for more questions, I can put up a poll asking people how many years of experience they have, so we can gauge how much has changed since last year. So feel free to answer that, and then we'll continue to watch for questions in chat. All right, we have another question about hospital waste. It seems to be a hot topic. What is specifically in hospital waste that we're looking for, and what is it, and that is the most harmful to the POTW?
Yeah, the vials which they use for and I mean anything which is the liquid which is used in the hospitals. There is a list of contaminants, list of liquids which cannot be discharged, and how they should take care of that. It is well mentioned in that 40 CFRs.
All right, we have another question. In the process of dewater grease trap waste, can the water be discharged to any public treatment system? So I think the
No,
question is, oh, go ahead.
the process water, dewater, grease trap waste can be water be discharged to any public. No, grease, oil and grease it should not be discharged to the municipal sewers, especially if it is coming from the residential households, then it is different. But if it is coming from the restaurants, if it is coming from the car wash systems, then they should follow the best management practice. They should have a place to collect that and then send it for the treatment separately. And I want to add, this may be a little off answer. In the eastern region also, there is a new industry which is coming up, which takes care of oil and grease collected from different facilities. That is Fog Solutions, Moses Lake, and recently I have permitted that. So that is one of the source for other people need not to go to the Seattle.
That's good news. So there's a question, it's probably in response to a comment you made during the presentation, but it's why do you think fog is not more regulated than it is?
Because it is the city's responsibility to take care of oil and grease, fog. There is a big fog program by the cities to make sure that it is not well discharged to the sewer system and will cause an interference or reduce the efficiency of the POTW.
Because there are no pre-treatment standards for fog waste, in the federal standards. So
in the standards, I do agree, but this is covered fully by the local limits. Mm-hmm. I have the nearby city here where they have in the local limits, they have very well mentioned that fog should not be more than 100 milligram per liter or 10 milligram, 20, 50 milligram per liter, like that. It comes under local limits. Mm-hmm. And the local limits are basically designed based on I mentioned earlier, the capabilities and capacities of the receiving POTW.
Every POTW is required to have local limits. So if someone here attending today is not sure what the local limit requirements are for fog waste, they should look into it. If they're not able to find it, they should be working with their ecology representative to figure out how to set a limit and doing the local limits evaluation for that.
Yeah, local limits are usually 100 for fog. It is 100 milligram per liter. Mm-hmm. That is one of the city's local limit I'm talking about. Like that, they have to develop depending upon the type of treatment, wastewater treatment they have in the city or town.
While we're waiting for, just got a question. So this is mainly I think it's a comment on your response. So fog is mainly a sewer conveyance issue, and local limits are typically for non-polar fog rather than polar fog. Enforcing a polar fog limit would be tricky and costly.
Yeah, looks.
So while we wait for some more comments to come in, and I want to point out that if you developed a question after this meeting and you realize, oh, I should have asked that question, you can always send it to Vijay, of course. But there's also the groups.io/g/pretreatment website forum, and there's a lot of people around the state, around the nation, and the world who subscribe to that forum, and it's a great place if you have a question that you want to get some different opinions on, or if you want to get an idea of how people are dealing with a certain issue, post that question to the forum and you'll get a lot of responses back. And it's a great way also to get to know people's different programs and see how people handle the same situation differently. I look at it weekly and look at what's going on in the different areas of the world. It's very interesting. So we have a question here. What about the disposal tracking of fog waste on a state level?
I don't have an answer for that. The state level, fog tracking, but I think it is left to the individual town or city to track how much is the fog collected and where they are disposing of, and have a database for that. I'm not sure about the state level database for that.
Interesting. Is that database internal to ecology, or is it publicly available for pretreatment agencies to take a look at?
I do not know. I don't think so. Ecology has this data, fog data for state level.
Well, I think maybe one of the goals of this pre-treatment pre-fog committee is maybe to develop some regional information about fog and to see kind of what local limits are set around the state, maybe to see how people are tracking surcharge recovery or just different information about fog to help us regulate a little bit better. If that's something the state doesn't get involved in.
Is it the question? Is there any standard local limit reference? Yeah, it depends upon the city, I think. There is no standard. It depends upon the city wastewater treatment also. There may be a document available, but I'm not sure about the guidance document from ecology. Yeah, I gave an example of 100 milligram for one of the nearest city.
And could a control authority adopt that reference without having to go through local limit study?
Yeah, they can develop their own local limit standards may be more stringent than the state. Because I said the local limits standards are basically developed based on the treatment capacity and capability of the wastewater treatment plant. So that is more important for me. That has to be more stringent.
Another question about fog is, outside of public education, what are some ways that you would recommend reducing fog levels?
I think public education is important, and also you should conduct regular inspections. Many cities, towns have adopted their fog program. I have 5 delegated cities. They are doing well. They inspect all the restaurant, whether they have a fog wrap in place or not, whether there is any regular maintenance is conducted, inspection is conducted. By that way, you can improve the fog program. By you can reduce the fog to the treatment plant.
Great. We have another question about hospital waste. Incineration is starting to be a thing of the past. Are there any other means of disposal for hospital waste?
Hospital waste, to my understanding, incineration is the only one right now.
Could
Because
a
there are many toxic and hazardous substance in that. There may be a contaminant, some contagious stuff may be there in the hospitals. That is why the incineration is the only way which has the best treatment available.
So probably best if a pretreatment program has a hospital in their jurisdiction to find out if the waste is being incinerated, and to work with their ecology contact and make sure those.
Yeah, I just want to add, what happens is when a hospital or clinics come in the area, then the city health district contact ecology to make sure that whether is there any permit for them. So since their wastewater is very small, if it is the wastewater which they are producing is similar to the domestic one, we make sure that we tie with the health district to do a inspection for that hospital and make sure that they are taken care of by the health district itself.
Yeah, I don't think you need to follow up.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have about 3 more minutes before we're gonna close the Q&A session here. So put in your comments if you like. And I'm taking a look at the poll earlier, and it's interesting to see the options were less than 1 year, 1 to 3 years, 4 to 10 years, 10 plus years. And there's more people participating today with 1 to 3 years of experience than there are just about combined 4 to 10 and 10 and more. So that's really interesting. Not what I expected, but I'm glad we took time to have a Q&A session and a Pretreatment 101 presentation from Vijay to cover some basic topics that people may not have learned, in their first 1 to 3 years of pretreatment program experience. And for the rest of us who have a lot more experience, this is a good reminder of the basics and why we do what we do. So I'm not seeing any more questions, but I don't want to cut people short. So I will launch one last poll to see where people are located from, which region. Let me post that now. And I have the 4 regions that we have representatives, our co-chairs are from. But I also included Portland, Oregon, and Oregon other than Portland. So I know a lot of participants are coming here from Portland. But then I also want to include people who are representing statewide jurisdictions. So go ahead and participate in that. Surprisingly, I see a lot of people from the Northwest. I'll give 1 more minute for the poll, and I'll keep monitoring the chat, and we'll answer. We have one last question. Actually, it's a comment. If you have good rapport with your collections crew, it's helpful to know what fog issues they're dealing with and whether they're from commercial or domestic sources, such as apartment complexes. Commercial ones are regulated, domestic ones require outreach and public education. It's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll summarize the poll real quick, and then we'll turn it over to our next session of the meeting today. So 57% from Northwest, and we have 5% from Southwest, 15% from Central, and 5% from Eastern, including Vijay. And then 5% from Portland and 5% from Oregon, other than Portland, and 5% statewide. So thank you all for coming today. We have 10 more minutes of the presentation, so please stay tuned. But I want to take some time to thank Vijay for his presentation today. That was really great. I really enjoyed it. And I was looking forward to it for the last couple of months since I talked to you about presenting today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, so we're moving on. I want to give some time in the last part of this meeting today, the last 10 minutes, to kind of spotlight another committee within APWA, the Washington chapter. And today we're going to hear from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Today we have Julia Roshalangi presenting with us, and he's going to introduce the committee and what it is that drew him maybe to the committee and how us today could participate in the committee. And I do want to point out, you can be a part of more than one committee. So you don't have to leave the pre-fog committee to be in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. You can be a part of both. So I'll turn it over to you, Julius.
So thank you very much, Anne. And first of all, thank you for inviting me to your committee meeting, because this is really important for us. And I really appreciate the fact that you asked us to come in and talk about ourselves. Just a little bit of background. I'm Julius Ramashonja. I'm the Director of Capital Projects with the Department of Transportation, the City of Seattle. So like any other organization, we have diversity and inclusion requirements. As a matter of fact, the City of Seattle talks of race and social justice. So that's one of the big things that the City of Seattle tried to push. About I'm going to say 26 years ago, or 27, around that time, that's when race and social justice really came to the forefront within the City of Seattle. And speaking about race, speaking about inclusion, speaking about things that could make the workplace even better was a challenge. We really didn't have language for that. I just want to say we didn't have language for that. The idea was that so long as we were race kind of or colorblind, we were doing good. So long as we're respectful of each other, we're doing good, but there were inherent things that we never talked about. Fast forward, I joined APWA as a member, and then the position of chair for diversity and equity had fallen vacant. And a member of the board approached me and said, hey, would you be interested in this? And I, as an individual, having known that I benefit, sorry about the phone call. I have a landline that is ringing. But the point I wanted to, oh, shoot, and. So give me a few minutes while this talks. I'll kind of mute myself just for. Sorry about that. I just needed to mute that first. So anyways, fast forward, I had joined APWA, and APWA is a really very good place to grow as a leader and really get information, just like the information you were talking about earlier on fog, and really getting to understand some of the nuances and whatnot. So I said, yeah, I would do that. Then shortly after that, Linda, she's with JTS. She joined previously. She wasn't. And then Janelle, who is my admin, also joined. So that's how we came about. Right now, we are a group of, we are really very small. I have a member of that is from the Sammamish Plateau. His name is Kyle Wang. We have Ahmed Kwame. He's from the port of Portland, so he's from Oregon. And then Anne, who is with KPFF, she's a structural, Anne Frebilio, she is a consultant with KPFF, and Sonia with SDOT. And then, of course, Sarah, who is with WSP, Sarah Meldat. She's with WSP, a consulting firm, and she's actually also on the board of APWA Washington chapter. So what we did is sit down and try to not reinvent the wheel, but try to look at some of the things that we believe are important. And one of them was that instead of hiding our differences, we can actually celebrate those differences. We can talk of equity, we can talk of inclusion, and then we can also talk of a sense of value and empowerment within our own communities. So we redid the mission. In the process of redoing this DEI mission, we've also went back and looked at what APWA, the national APWA, talks about diversity, and tried to see that whatever it is that we do is in line. In other words, is the culture that at the national level similar to the culture, or does it mirror the culture that we also want to foster in the state of Washington? And we did that, looked at the chapter, looked at the roadmaps, understood that, and we sat down and we began to chat about some of this. So right now, one of the things that we have is part of the few things of our work plan, and I wanted to check some of that, is how do we engage others within APWA? How do we engage other committees? So one thing that we are going to do right now is really at the conferences, see if we can have a booth where or an outreach booth where we can share materials, or come to a meeting like this one and talk with you and tell you what we are doing and see if you could be interested in participating. And then also look at other people that are doing similar work. For example, we are trying to see if we can have Seattle Public Utilities come in and help present on race and social justice. And you'll find some of the things and their approach to race and social justice, their approach to inclusion, their approach to equity could probably mirror something that some of you may want to it's not like patented information, but it's information that you could see and say, yeah, I think that is something that we could replicate. That is something that I do not need to go out and reinvent the wheel. Probably we can use that methodology to actually improve in our own agencies, in our own organization, issues of equity and inclusion. And we can actually find value and empowerment of other groups, of ourselves, because collectively we all benefit. So we are thinking of doing that next year spring. So that is one of the things that is in our outreach and plan. I've had a chance to talk with the department head of SPU, and now I'm communicating with some of the members that actually produce that body of work. And I'm hoping that when APWA opens up a spring for us to do presentations or what we might want to present, that when we present our abstract, that it will be one of those acceptable abstracts. So more to come on that. Then the other thing, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to give you a 1-minute warning before the end of the meeting. But
Okay.
While I have interrupted, I'm going to launch a poll so people can enter their information if they'd like more information about the DEI committee, and I can share that with you after the meeting.
Yes, and also you can we actually included our emails right there. You can let us know and get in touch with me on that slide, and then probably one of the things we might also be doing is looking for champions, people that can assist us in recruiting. And we are happy if you're willing also to do that when you go back to your own organizations and talk about diversity for us. And I think my minute is up.
Yeah, sorry to cut you short.
No. Yeah.
appreciate you coming in and demonstrating what it is that DEI does. And I hope we can have you again as a special guest at our next meeting. And you can talk about some progress that's been made since the last meeting.
Yes. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Julius. Thank you all for attending today. Again, I mentioned earlier, a recording is to be posted on the committee webpage, so keep an eye out for that. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day.